I found my way to the Office of State Scientific Development. It was a large and expansive building with a modern architecture to it, very striking against the skyline, with several above-ground floors of glass and metal. And I entered with my newly acquired security clearance. The front desk informed me I needed to enter my credentials at this level to proceed further into the facility. There would be a slight delay as the government needed to verify my authorization to access. The facility was quite secure and guaranteed entry was allowed to only a select few. I accessed the entry portal and used the credentials given me by the governor. It took a moment to authorize my entry into the laboratory levels below. I succeeded, and began my descent into the facility's next level. At the next level I was met with security at the entrance. I was again instructed to enter my information for authorization to proceed any further into the facility. I made my way to the computer on the floor, and began the arduous procedure once more. I did so, and after a brief authentication process gained to verify my acceptance, I once again applied to be granted my access to the next lower level. After a seemingly long time of waiting for my clearance to be accepted, I began the long descent into the bowels of the building. The security officers eyed me wearily as I made my way to the ladder. They were quite observant of my actions, and watched me keenly as I ventured forward into the secure facility. It was a long and difficult climb downward into the next level, and I gingerly made the trek with caution on the steps of the ladder. At the next level I was once again met with security, and once more I was again asked for my clearance. The guard at the entrance to the next level entered the certification himself, not allowing me to have access to his computer. I waited for my clearance, and was suddenly met immediately by the facility director. He had been informed of my descent into the facility and was now to escort me further downward in the building. To proceed any further required supervision, he explained. I achieved my proper authorization, and the director reluctantly led me to the last access point to the basement area of the building. 4 stories down into the bottom of the facility. It was a holding tank of sorts, with a long row of steel-gated cells extending through the lighted hallway. I was carefully escorted to the back cell. There I was met with a rather gruesome and terrifying sight. It seemed that the government was in current possession of a subhuman species. It was horribly disfigured and seemed to have a basic understanding of its circumstances. The creature laughed as I examined it. The director informed me of what I was looking at. It seems that they had procured this creature some time ago. It was the end result of the deformational experiments performed on the other corpses I had discovered. It was genetically altered. For what purpose, he could not say. But the other bodies had apparently been unsuccessful in the transformation process. This one had succeeded and only recently been discovered and brought in for examination. He was quite sure it had been discovered in the vicinity of Windenburg, near the cliffs overlooking the lake. I went to the professor on the mountain. I told him of my acceptance to view the creature in its holding cell at the institute. He was relieved. He explained he was under confidential agreement to not discuss the creature. The government had deemed it too dangerous to inform the public of it. He also confided in me that the deformed figures I had witnessed in the swamp were also collected near Windenburg. They were the unfinished results of the process, and may have inadvertently been allowed to escape. They had been caught and were to be studied further by the government. I asked what this had to do with all the killings that has plagued the Sims world. He said that it was his personal opinion that they were being transformed into whatever the creature was in the basement cell. Why, he could not venture to say, and by whom, he could not begin to explain. His own laboratory held several of the instruments I had previously observed in the facility. I was intrigued. I asked what he thought might be the reason for all this, and he calmly explained that even if he had an inkling of a reason, he could not divulge it to me. I was still not in possession of the clearance to discuss it. Frustrated with his reluctance, I followed as he led me to another interesting machine. It was a portal he had of some sort that he had constructed. Its purpose was to open an avenue to another world. It was here, he surmised, that the answer might lie. I looked at it intently and even tried my novice hand at attempting to use it. But, like him, it offered no result to me. I was fully aware that I was not in possession of the appropriate knowledge to utilize his contraptions. It was beyond me now, and it seemed I had exhausted his knowledge. I was also of mind he had withheld all this from me before, and wondered what else he might know on the subject. I took this new information and left his retreat. What the hell was going on? What was this new wrinkle to lead me into? Was there an alien conspiracy at work? It seemed quite fantastic and very improbable. I would leave with more questions to be resolved and made my way to the station. I immediately went to my companions in arms. They were in the middle of a bit of lunch, and bid me to join them. I recited the events of the day, knowing they were indeed to be kept confidential, but the need for another point of view outweighed the want of secrecy. I wanted to leave behind a documented explanation of my activities on the case, should something happen to me in my pursuit. I had a nagging suspicion now that as tragedy befell me, it was to warn me to cease my inquiry in the matter. I wanted them to open an extensive investigation into Eliza's untimely death. Had that act been the first salvo in my battle? Was I ultimately the direct cause of her death? They assured me of their compliance and would begin anew with the investigation immediately. An officer appeared at the door, and after entry gave me terrible news. It seems that my house was currently engulfed in flames, and had been destroyed by what appeared to be a bomb of pyrotechnic origins. Of Mrs. Pennybiggles and Emily, he knew not. By the time I had arrived home, my house was completely engulfed in flames. It looked as if a bomb had shattered its foundation, and in an instant, I knew the worst. Inside the burning rubble lay Mrs. Pennybiggles, and my little Emily. They were both gone. I lost what little sanity I had that day, as all the attending officers tried to console me over the destruction. It was such a scene of total despair. I now had the conviction of the mad, and my thoughts rested on one thing: revenge. I was met by the pastor of the church. It was the same church I had received services for Eliza, and now it served to provide a safe haven for Mrs. Pennybiggles and little Emily. The pastor was kind, and tried to reassure me of the better life awaiting them in his definition of paradise. I was numb, and didn't counter with my own thoughts. I looked down at the small coffin of my little Emily, and was overtaken with grief. I collapsed. And so we shall begin with renewed vigor to finish this, once and for all.